Hello everyone, this is Phil Gibbs from OpenMake Software and welcome to the latest installment of a series I like to call How to Do Cool Things with DeployHub. So what we're going to show you is how DeployHub can handle a scenario where you have a configuration file that you need to change as an application moves through the lifecycle, but that configuration file is embedded in the WAR file that makes up the web application, which happens rather more often than you might think. So we have our IT Guys application. Our IT Guys application looks like this. It just lists important people in IT. So in our development environment, we're at version 2. Refresh this. So our test environment is at version 1. And our production environment is at version 1. And if I look at what DeployHub knows that I've got version 1 in UAT, version 1 in production, and version 2 in development. What we've done is we've taken version 2 of this application and we've moved it into the UAT domain, but it's not yet been deployed. We have to now deploy this into our test environment. Now the problem we've got is that this application has come from the developers, and developers doing what developers always do is they pay no real attention to what happens outside of their own development environment, and so there's a configuration file that's XML based and that's embedded in the WAR file. Let me show you what I mean. That's the WAR file in question. So let's extract what we've got there. So I'll just do itguys.war. So that's what our application looks like, and you can see we've got a config file, config.xml, and if I have a look at what's in there, you can see that we've got a XML-based configuration file with environment and build number in it, but more significantly we have our JDBC connection string, and that is what's connecting it to the database, and that is our development database. So obviously if we were just to deploy this WAR file as is into our test environment, it may well work, but it will be pointing at the wrong database. And so we want to be able to make a change to this configuration file that's actually embedded in the WAR file, and make a change and change that, that connection string based on our target environment. Okay, so what we should look at now is what our different target environments look like. So if I look on one, so if I look inside OpenMake demo, we've got the development environment here. If I look at the attributes, you can see our connection string is set for development. And if I look at my UAT, you can see it's Postgres 2 and production is Postgres 3. So we have a different connection string for each environment that we're going to deploy to. So what we need to do is to extract that configuration file from the WAR, make a change to that connection string, and put the configuration file back into the WAR file before that WAR file is deployed to the target server. So we know that DeployHub has this concept of a drop zone where files can be manipulated before they get pushed out. So let me have a look at back to our application, and let's have a look at IT Guys 2, which is just a typical example of this. And we look at the components that make it up. So the component is IT Guys app version 2, and the database change that goes along with it. If I have a look at that component, you'll see that it's just a single WAR file. So this is the WAR file. The itguys.war is being pulled from, in this case, Jenkins archive, and is just being pushed off into our target. But so what we can do is we can manipulate, as a pre-action, we can manipulate the files before they get deployed. So a pre-action on a component can manipulate the files that make up that component, in this case a single WAR. It can be manipulated before it gets pushed out. So let's have a look at this, what this action looks like. And so you see we've got a number of steps. We've got extract config from WAR, and what this does is it's a function called extract files from zip. So we can essentially pull a file from a zip archive. So the zip file, which is also, could be a war, a jar, or an ear, is itguys.war. And the file we're going to extract is webinf /config.xml. So that's the file we're going to pull from that war file. Single file, right? We're not going to explode the war file. We're not going to pull everything out. We're just going to extract that single configuration file from itguys.war. The next bit is basically manipulating that XML. So we have built-in functions to manipulate XML element. So what we're doing is we're saying manipulate the config.xml file using XPath. So we pull itguys environment and replace it with $environment, which will differ depending on what environment we're deploying to. The one thing what we're really interested in is the JDBC. So you remember that connection string changes from environment to environment. So again, we're modifying config.xml, and we're going to change the JDBC tag, which is an itguys JDBC. Now, it doesn't matter whether that is currently populated. You remember that's what the file looks like. It's currently got a value in there. But because we're modifying XML, it's just going to replace the content of that value. So it doesn't matter that the developers have given us a configuration file with values already in it. This is a specific XML manipulator, and that will just replace the JDBC tag text with whatever's in $connection string. And obviously $connection string is going to change depending on what our target environment is. So we do the environment, we do our connection string, we set the build number for what it's worth by using component.lastBuild. Because we've connected this to our Jenkins CI server, so every time a new build is done, the component gets the last build updated. So we know what build that this has come from. So we're just going to stick that into our configuration file as well, because the application happens to pick it up and display it. So we've pulled the config file from the war. We've changed the XML settings, picking up environment, JDBC string, and build number. Environment and JDBC string are specific to the target environment, and the build number is specific to the version of the component that we're deploying. We've done all that. What we need to do is to put that back in to our war file. Right? And so we use add file to zip. We put the config back in war. The zip file is itguys.war, and the file to add is their config.xml. So what this will do is it will essentially replace the old version of config.xml in that war file with the new version that we've just changed. The checkbox delete from drop zone actually removes that file once it's been added back into the war file. So if we didn't do that, we'd end up with config.xml sitting in our drop zone, and when we did the deployment to the target server, that would end up getting deployed separately. We don't want that to happen. We want that to be just embedded in the war file. So we check that box, and that removes the file from the drop zone after it's been put back into the war file. So essentially what we do is we pull the file out of the war, we manipulate the XML, and then we put it back in again. And that all happens as a pre-activity before the deployment. And so the war file is manipulated on DeployHub server itself, so in the drop zone, and then at the conclusion of that processing, the file is just deployed to the target. So let's do that now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take go to our application. I'm going to do go itguys version 2, and I'm going to deploy that into our test environment, which is UAT env1, and I'm just going to go OK. And so that's now going to deploy version 2 of that war file, and it's going to deploy that into our test environment. Let's have a look at what's happened there. So you'll see that we've pulled out version 182, that was build 182 of itguys.war, and we've also rolled the database forward because we've applied some DDL and DML. Let's have a look at the log file. So you can see we've extracted file webinf config XML from the archive itguys.war. We modified it 3 times, and then we replaced webinf config XML in zip file, and then we deployed it. And then we rolled the database forward. So all that happened automatically. If I now look at our test in a moment and refresh that, you can see that we've updated it. It's gone to build 182, and that is reading from the test database that we ran the SQL against to add the date of birth column. And production, obviously, is still at version 1. So that's an example of actually pulling an embedded configuration file out of a web archive and manipulating it before it's deployed onwards to the target server, and this all happens automatically inside DeployHub just by dragging and dropping those actions. Hope you found that interesting. Thank you very much, and look forward to the next installment. Bye bye.